Hello, my friends from around the world. I'm Lucy Morris, and welcome to another episode of the FlyingArcher.com, which is sponsored by New England School of Archery and Supplies, LLC. We have an amazing guest for you today, Leigh Walmsley.
Hi.
Hey, Leigh.
Hi.
Leigh is originally from Michigan, and she now lives in Warrington, England. She is a former Paralympian archer who has limited mobility due to nerve damage in her right foot, ankle, and a portion of her lower leg following a cycling accident as a child. Leigh was introduced to archery in the Girl Scouts and loved it. Then as an adult in 2006, Leigh went to the UK Archery Forum and took a shot at archery. Then 6 years later, Leigh represented her country in the Paralympics. Leigh is adamant about the potential of sport and physical exercise to improve the lives of disabled people. Wow. We have a lot to discuss, and please welcome from the United Kingdom, Leigh Walmsley.
Thank you.
Hey, Leigh, I just gave a brief overview and bio. Leigh, sit back, relax, take a minute or two, and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into archery.
Well, I also wanted to add that I have rheumatoid arthritis as well,
Okay.
which affects almost every one of my joints. So when I was actually going through a divorce, and it was affecting me quite badly, and I just was not going out, not really engaging, and I just thought, I need to get out of here. If I don't get out, I'm just going to make myself worse. So I thought to myself, well, what can I do? Having the rheumatoid arthritis and the other issues that you mentioned, it wasn't like I was going to go running or anything like that. So I just thought, well, what kind of nice, gentle sport can I do? And as you said, I remembered that I'd done archery in Girl Scouts, and I really, really liked it. So I had a look around, and there were several clubs near me, and I signed up for a beginner's course and just absolutely loved it. And the best thing was that there were 12-year-old kids to 70-year-old men doing it, and everybody in between, and that diversity was fantastic.
Wow, a mixed age group. Yeah, I teach a lot of mixed age groups.
Well, I mean, that's really the best thing about archery. Anybody can do it,
and pretty much any age.
Yes, yeah, any age, any ability. Yeah, well, and that just makes it so appealing.
So Leigh and I are going to sit back and talk for a little while. If you're listening while you're driving your car, I would just let you know I'm going to take all the notes so you can keep your hands on the wheel. And so all the links and resources will be on my blog, theflyingarcher.com. Hey, let's start with what kind of bow that you like.
I shoot a recurve. Long time ago when I first started, I also shot a longbow, but I always kept a longbow for fun things. Sometimes we would do like novelty shoots at our club with our then president, who has unfortunately passed away, was an amazing artist. So he created and drew most of the targets. So it was always a lot of fun, and they were crazy distances and you had to do silly things. And so I saved the longbow to do that and kept the recurve for more target things. But then as I got more competitive, I didn't really have time to do both. I know that some people will do both, but me personally, I needed to just concentrate. So I just stuck with a recurve, and it's just such a nice, elegant bow, but also very modern at the same time, and that quite appeals to me.
Yeah, it has still has some of the, no, I just totally lost it. What was the name of the bow that?
Sorry?
So you recurve bow, what was the other bow?
Oh, I shot a longbow.
The longbow, yeah, I don't know why that went out of my head.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it's, but the recurve
that's an
bow.
English longbow, not an American longbow, which we call a flat bow. Just to confuse you, yes. An American longbow over here we call a flat bow. And what I shoot is a English longbow, which is the really tall one.
Wow.
I don't know if that makes any sense. It has to be taller than you to be classed as a longbow.
Really?
Yeah.
To be classed as a British longbow.
Yeah, that's right.
How big is your longbow?
Oh, well, so I'm 5'9", so it was about 6 foot. I don't have it
Right.
anymore. My club mates has it. It was beautiful, and it broke my heart to let it go. But I
Uh-huh.
also hated that it was just sitting in the corner unused. It was too pretty to not be used by somebody.
And, and to give that sense of enjoyment, it doesn't do that if it's just sitting in the corner.
Exactly. And everybody who shot it thought it was such a lovely, sweet bow. So, to me it was great that it had a life. If people are shooting it, it gives it a life rather than just kind of collecting dust in a corner. No, that bow was too nice to just be,
Mhm.
a dust collector.
I'm sure that the bow appreciated it
I
too.
hope so.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite gadget that you have on your recurve bow?
I Ever since I started shooting a recurve, I've always had a Jaeger grip. And for someone who's got arthritis in their hands, I mean, even if you don't, it's great. But for me, it makes sure my hand placement is the same every time and it's comfortable. I found
Hmm.
shooting wooden grips just were that little bit too hard on my hand. So, and this just put my hand in such a nice placement. It was comfortable for me to shoot. So every bow that I've had has had a Jaeger grip, and I would never have a bow without one.
I think I know some people that type of grip would be really good for them.
It is really good, and you can get, if you have a higher grip, you can get it modified to have that. There's two kinds, to suit you, and obviously
Hmm.
they're made for each type of bow. It's not one size fits all. It is made to fit each type of bow. So it made a huge difference for me to start using one of those, and I just can't imagine not having one on my bow.
So you're obviously a recurve shooter. Now, why recurve instead of compound?
Um, just because I don't know, is there just something like I said before about that it's elegant and there's a finesse about it
Hmm.
that just attracted me. I'm not closed to trying a compound because if my disability continues the way it's going at the moment, I'm having massive shoulder problems. It
Oh.
might be in time that I have no choice but to shoot a compound. Compounds to me is far more technical, and I don't get me wrong, I that interests me, but I'm far more drawn to the recurve.
There is just something about pulling back the recurve
Yeah,
and feeling it and letting go rather. I mean, compound bow it's almost like shooting a shotgun. Almost, but not quite.
I've never shot a compound, so I can't say. I have shot a shotgun, but I've never shot a compound, so I can't say.
I've shot a compound once, and it just kind of went. There it went. Okay. Where have you traveled for competition as an archer, or as a coach? Have you done
I'm
coaching?
no, I'm not a coach. I think I'd rather do judging than coaching. Me
Mm.
personally, people
Why?
have told me I would make a good coach, but I quite like the the details of judging, and having all the cool little tools and stuff. um, yeah, I haven't been as many places as I would have liked to go.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, I've been to the UK, and I've shot in the Arizona Cup, and I've shot in the Czech Republic, and again back in the UK for the London Paralympics. And that's it. I would have liked to have gone to many other places, but I just didn't get the opportunity. Unfortunately, I had wanted the opportunity, but I didn't get it. So, but who knows? Maybe in the future I'll get more opportunity to go further afield.
What was the London Paralympics like?
Awesome. It was amazing to, because obviously this is my home now. So,
Yeah.
having a home Paralympics, sure, I didn't have to travel, like you would to go to another country. So, you don't sort of have that culture shock, or
Yeah.
everything is what but the certainly from talking to people who have been to other Paralympics, um, you don't tend to have your family 2 feet away from you. You don't get to just look up in the crowd and go, "Hey, there's my brother."
Yep.
So, so for that, that um, my club members and friends and other fellow archers and my family, were there. And normally when you're shooting, you don't have a crowd.
Yeah.
So to have people you actually know watching you, that was completely different, but also very reassuring. I'm sure
Hmm.
maybe some people didn't like maybe having people they know, maybe they found it a distraction. I found it a huge comfort, to know that there were people who were rooting for me out there. So yeah, so that was, and just to have, everybody you saw was just so, if they saw that you were in your Paralympic, clothing, they were just like so wanted to, even if they didn't know you, didn't, they just like, oh, can you take a picture with my son or my daughter? And, you felt like a celebrity, even if you
Wow.
didn't win a medal, you still felt like a celebrity, so that was really, really nice.
Well, I mean, the Paralympics is tough, and to get to the level where you're competing there, you had to qualify, right?
Yes.
So it's not like, just any old Paralympic archer, para archer coming to shoot. um, it's impressive and a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, up to the selection shoots, and then even more work after the selection shoots. Once
Hmm.
the team was named, we kind of just lived at the training center. I mean, you had no social life. You didn't really get to see your friends or your family, and hopefully most of them understood, what
Yeah.
you were doing. But yes, if you are that sort of person who, there were people who had children and maybe parents that needed looking after, and you have to make that decision that I'm not going to be there for you for x amount of months, and you have to hopefully understand that. So you know that's for me. Obviously my family lives in America, so for them to come, that was a bonus for me. So it wasn't, I'm away from them anyway.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like I was saying, oh, I can't see you. They said, actually, we're going to come and see you. So it was kind of the other way around. So that was really nice
Nice.
for
Yeah.
me. I was kind of in a different situation than most people. But, yes, it was just when during the opening ceremony, when,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the host team is the last one to come out. And, we were all there sort of, in the tunnel waiting to come out into the stadium. And for archery, we were actually told that they would have rather that we didn't go to the opening ceremony because we were competing the next day. And normally,
Oh.
when you do that, they don't let you go to the opening ceremony. But because so many of us hadn't been to a games before, they arranged so that we could just do the one lap when they introduced the team and then leave and go back and get a good night's sleep. We weren't actually allowed to sit and be there for the whole ceremony, but we were allowed to do that lap. So, but to
Oh,
be honest,
good.
it was like being a rock star. It was, oh,
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 yeah.
it just, you could not hear people for all the screaming. There was
Oh.
confetti coming down everywhere, like, like
Uh-huh.
being in a rain shower of confetti, and just everybody cheering for you and screaming. I mean, and it just didn't stop the whole time we went around. It just didn't stop. And to have David Bowie playing, and it was just amazing. And to have people texting you saying, "Oh, I saw you on TV," you know, it was great. And there were three of us lady recurves who were
Mhm.
on the GB squad who went to London, and so we made sure that we did our lap together, and we became known as the pom pom lady archers because we took our pom poms wherever we went. So that's how we
Oh.
got known. So whenever we came in, we always shook our pom poms, and that's how people knew us. So we had our pom poms for that lap.
Yeah. What music do you remember was playing?
David Bowie Heroes was playing,
Hmm.
and so every time I hear that, I get a bit
Yeah.
teary, and and plus now that David Bowie's died, unfortunately, that it means even more. But
Yeah.
every time it comes on, I just get a little bit lump in my throat and a bit teary, because it just brings back such huge memories.
That's just, yeah. I'm there with you, just visualizing what it's like, what it was like. How many people were in the crowd? It was a full
Oh
stadium?
God, yeah. Oh yes, to the rafters.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
couldn't even tell you how many people can fill that stadium, but it was full.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I had so many people saying, "Oh, did you see me? I was right by," and I'm like, I couldn't see anybody. All I saw was flashes of cameras and phones and confetti, and that's pretty much it. And the the two other teammates I was walking with. That's pretty much all I could see.
Do you remember the name of the venue?
I believe it's just, I think it's the Queen Elizabeth Park, I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, or that might be what they call it now. But obviously, it would be the Olympic Stadium. I would have thought, because that was the main stadium. That was where all the athletics and everything were held.
Hmm. Wow. What an amazing experience.
It was, and it was very chilly. When they make you gather so early. When they start announcing nations, you have to be there right from the beginning. And it
Hmm.
was so chilly. It was nice to see other nations, but they sort of corralled, everybody into their area. But
Yep.
obviously, while you're waiting, you can't help but see other nations and say hello to people and that sort of thing. Take your picture with them. But it was so cold that they actually took us into the tent where all the workers and the entertainers were,
Yep.
because they had an enormous tent, and they had TV, so you could actually watch. So it was really nice that we could go in there and keep warm. But because some of us were in there and not everybody went in, we
Hmm.
almost missed our cue.
Oh no. That would have been so wrong.
Yeah, so there was a lot of rushing at the last minute to say, "Oh, half the team has already left. You guys better move." But it was good because obviously we did get there just in the nick, and they kind of were like, support staff are at the back, athletes are at the front, so they're kind of like, guys need to go further to the front. So,
Mhm.
they were just making way for us so we could get there. So I think we were probably toward the back of the athletes, just before where the support staff were walking through. So, but it was still amazing.
What was it like competing?
Amazing. um, yeah, I think one of the worst things, even though it was like I mentioned how it was chilly at night, during
Yeah.
during the day we were really lucky with our weather, because you don't always get nice summery weather over here. Um, and we had one of the practice days, it just was absolutely hammering it down with thunder and lightning. But it didn't last long, but we did have to rush into the tents because it was coming down quite hard, but it was
Mhm.
warm, so you didn't mind it so much. But on the
Yeah.
day of the qualification, it was cold and
Oh.
rainy, and because we'd been practicing in this nice warm weather, and then suddenly the day it starts, it's cold. Well, cold affects joints, so
Oh
I
no.
really, really suffered, even though I was prepared.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you have that transition sort of from, you know f- from winter into spring, summer, and it's
Yeah.
sort of, you're like, when do I stop wearing socks and when do I start wearing
I know.
wearing sandals, or shoes, that ballerina pumps, whatever, so that you don't have to wear socks anymore. It's kind
Mhm.
of one of those things. You're well into not wearing socks anymore, and then suddenly the day comes and you're thinking, I have to wrap up warm. And it
That's
just
what today's like here.
and it feels so, yeah, I heard about that. And it feels so strange. Once you
Mm.
start doing it and you're doing it every day, you get used to it. But it's that kind of transition period where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Is it
Yep.
really warm enough? Is it cold enough? Depending on what season you're going into. And that's what happened.
Mhm.
And I had my gloves and I had my coat, and I did everything. I had my little heat pads for my hand, but I think my body kind of was just like, what are you doing to me? I was toasty warm yesterday, and now I am absolutely freezing cold. So, that I don't want to make excuses, but
Mhm.
I can't get away from the fact that it does affect my hands, especially quite badly.
Mhm.
So my qualification was really not very good, and I was really kind of upset about that because, that's written down in history. And I know that I'm a better archer than what my score was. So that's hard. But, qualification, you know, doesn't necessarily make a difference because it just ranks you to then go and shoot. So that's not what makes you win. Your qualification score isn't what's going to win you a medal.
Yep.
It's how you do in your head to heads. So the head to heads were, it was funny because I was with my agent, and who was my coach. And
Mhm.
and I said to her, because she said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I feel really calm on the outside, but I feel kind of like my heart is about 2 feet out of my chest." And she said, "Oh, that's called adrenaline." And she's like, "Just be aware of that because that adrenaline's going to change while you're shooting." So she's like, just keep an eye on your sight marks because, you might start shooting high because you're full of adrenaline, and then you might drop. That adrenaline might drop and your arrows might drop. So she's like, don't go too crazy adjusting your sight because you will settle down at some point. So I just thought, okay, well, that's because I've never experienced that before. That's a good thing to know. But
Yep.
I didn't feel nervous. I actually felt quite calm. I just had this strange feeling that my heart was beating so far out of my chest. And I'm just like, what is this? And she's like, oh, yes, that's your adrenaline rushing. So be aware of that. And that's not something you can practice for. That's
Yeah.
not something you can kind of recreate. So, yeah, so that was a new one for me. But yeah, I'll never forget how I felt. But, my first match, I won 6-0. So,
Mm.
and I beat somebody who was ranked higher than me. So I felt great. So, but the only problem is because, at that point, there's 2 consecutive matches going on at the same time. And they
Mhm.
weren't announcing my match at that time. So I sort of didn't, it kind of, passed people by that I'd won my match 6-0. So I just
Oh,
I just kind of had to have my own little private celebration. My family knew,
yeah.
they were all at the top, cheering and going crazy, and
Yep.
so at least they knew, and they took a picture of me coming off with a big smile on my face. So, I had just had my own little private celebration then. And then in the next round, I got beaten, but by a dear friend who went on to win the bronze medal. So if you're going to get beaten, I always feel like get beaten by someone who's going to win a medal, who's going to go all the
Yeah.
way. If you're going to get beaten, get beaten by the top people, and at least I did score some points with her. But, the nice thing is when she won her bronze match, and then
Mhm.
we know how tough a bronze match is. I saw her and her coach, and she's Polish, and her English isn't very good. But her coach's English is a bit better. And I think I must have been one of the first people she saw when she came off the field, and she just came right up to me and just was just crying with joy, and she just was hugging me so tight and saying things in Polish that I didn't understand. And her coach just said, "She's won this for you and all of the European archers because everybody else obviously was Korean, or from the Far East. So, she's like, this is for Europe. So she's won this for all of you." And I'm like, "Oh, I love you even more now." That's such a nice thing to say, but
Wow.
she's one of my favorite people in archery. So, if I'm going to be beaten by someone, I would rather have it be beaten by a friend.
Yeah.
I'd rather not get beaten, but if you have to get beaten, you might as well be beaten by somebody, like I say, who's going to go all the way, and somebody who you really like.
Well, for those listeners that are not all that up on what's going on in archeries, the Koreans are pretty good.
Yeah.
And so this is what just happened with you guys is just phenomenally awesome to say. I didn't just win for me. I won for all of
Yeah.
us
That is, but if, any,
from another country,
yes. But anybody who knows her knows what a big heart she has. So,
Hmm.
this is one thing I love about para archery is that, you know, archery in general, you make a huge amount of friends, but
Yep.
I think para archery is just that little bit different. I think there's something that kind of bonds para archers together that little bit more. And, I think we're a bit more, um, we're more open to picking on ourselves as well, without getting upset, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, but she was one of the first people I ever shot with when I became an international archer. And ever since then, we've remained really good friends, which is fantastic. I love that I have so many archery friends from so many places in the world.
What's her name again?
Her name is Milena, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her surname, but she
Okay.
will be going to Rio, so she's very,
We
very good.
we will we'll get her last name and put her on our show notes
Okay.
so people can look her up
It
too.
starts with an O, but I'm not even going to try to pronounce it.
Okay.
But I'll get it for you.
Do you have a particular special moment of that Paralympics in England?
Oh God, a moment. Wow. Trying to figure out a moment. Wow.
Oh, pick one moment of the many.
I will say probably after the games was over, they had a
Hmm.
heroes parade through London. Both for it was a combination of the Olympians and the Paralympians on many, many, many open top buses,
Wow.
and
Oh, I love those buses. Okay.
obviously they did it alphabetically. So archery was on the number one bus,
Ah,
and we were
cool.
we were also on with part of the athletics team.
Uh-huh.
So there were a lot of medalists on that particular bus, so it was great. But we were the first ones to sort of start the parade, and we were kind of just on the. Pardon me, that's just my dog getting excited. Um, um,
That's okay.
um, we were kind of like on the side streets as they were filling up the buses, and then each bus would just kind of snake up a little bit, even though there were people who had come down to where the bus queue started. um it was just you know maybe two people deep on the path. um
Hmm.
but it was a quieter, so I think and because we were kind of just poking along, we were able to wave to people and talk to people from the bus and things like that. And then as we rounded onto the main route, there were probably people 50 deep with
Wow.
signs, and the cheering was immense. I mean, and there's again confetti everywhere, and there was just an it's as if all of London stopped and came out to cheer us on. And you could just look down this main road, and I mean it was just people. You could see nothing but people. There were workmen who stopped, who were on the tops of buildings. There were office people hanging out the windows. It was just everybody stopped to cheer us on and say well done. And when we sort of turned the corner and got into that sea of people, I just started crying. I just couldn't, and everybody's like, why are you crying? I'm like, it's not as sad. I'm overwhelmed that the
Mm.
whole city and probably more are here for us. I'm like, this is amazing to be part of this. And then once I started crying, then everybody else started crying too.
Look what you started.
Yeah, they're just like, why? And I'm just like, because. And they're like, oh my God, you're right. So yeah, that will always stick in my mind, just to just turn that corner and just see, like, you know, it felt like the whole world.
Mhm.
Because when I look back at some of the video I took and some of the photos, you literally cannot see for people. And then we got down to by Buckingham Palace, and they did like a presentation down there, and again that was amazing. And
Mm.
again, we got to be like right in the front, so people were saying, "Oh, we saw you on TV," and the red arrows flew past with the colored smoke coming out the back, and yeah, it was just amazing. And the prime minister was there, and we were literally within touching distance, and yeah, it just, that, and that just, and then, the whole day, it just kept going and going and going. So then after that, we then went down to another place where we had a um, buffet, and there were celebrities there and musicians, and it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe all of these people care so much.
Yeah.
Obviously this means as much to them as it means to us. So yeah, so it was just everywhere you turned, there was something to just make your jaw drop. Yeah, so and when I see the pictures again, or I look at video and stuff, I do. Same with that David Bowie song. I get a lump in my throat just thinking I was a part of that. And when are we going to see home games again? It's going to be a long time before there's another games in London.
Yeah.
So and I got to be part of it. So yes, that's, to me, a hugely, hugely special thing.
And so thank you for sharing. It's allowing more of us to be a part of it in a way just watching it on TV doesn't do it. Well, they also didn't, in the United States, they didn't really show any Paralympics,
Yeah,
which
I heard that, and that made me really sad.
me,
And I know it made a lot of athletes really sad too.
it, I hear it's going to change for the next
Yeah, I
one.
see that they've added quite a few more hours onto the broadcast. But I have to say, here, um, it was a different network, that different from the BBC to the Olympics,
Hmm.
and we pay for a TV license, because obviously the BBC is probably like PBS in America. So
Oh, the
it's
BBC is phenomenal.
and because obviously everything's here is digital TV.
Hmm.
They had, a channel for every single sport. You could watch archery all day, every single day it was on. But for the Paralympics, it was a different network that had it. And, so they have ads and things. That's how they pay for their TV. Whereas the BBC, if you have a TV, you pay a license, and that's what runs the BBC.
Hmm.
So they don't have ads or anything like that. So we pay for that, so that you can. It's great when you watch a film on TV. There's no ads. Which, whenever I
Yeah,
go home, I forget how many ads there are in TV.
yeah.
But while this other channel, they're very irreverent, and they were, they had a show called The Last Leg about disability, and um, it wasn't like the BBC. They didn't show any archery. They showed our two British medalists in an interview, but they didn't actually show any of the archery. So yes, there was coverage, probably a lot more, because I actually didn't see. I didn't really watch television while I was in the village, so I didn't really know what was being broadcast. But obviously for the Olympics, I was at home still, so I could, and I wanted to make sure I saw all my friends.
Oh, yeah.
But from what I understand is, when our two British ladies won a gold and silver, they came into the studio and were interviewed, but they didn't actually show any of the archery finals or anything like that. So yes, in a way, it brought more attention to disabled sport in the Paralympics. It could have been so much more. And
Got more work to do
yeah,
with it.
and
Yeah.
this is the first time that this channel has ever done anything like this. So good on them for wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And they've got the license to do it for Rio as well. So hopefully, London was their first time. Hopefully it'll get better and better each time they do it. But they still probably won't ever be able to, because it's a different animal than how the BBC is run. They won't be able to have a dozen digital channels with every sport on them.
Hmm.
That's just not going to happen with that channel. That's really the only thing that the BBC could do. So, but hopefully in the future, it won't be them and us. It'll just be, the games, rather
That
than
it should be.
it's just the, the whole thing is the games. We don't say the Olympics and the Paralympics. It's just the games, and that
Yep.
people will be as excited for both. They did have some good ads, I have to say. Like they had some.
Or the Olympics, and that just covers everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, it might be difficult to do that for in some respects, but yes, it would be great if they could find a way to do it. But at least this channel, they had some great billboards in London about how the Olympics was the warm up for the Paralympics. So I quite like
Nice.
those. But this channel is known for being irreverent and on the cutting edge. So that sort of
Okay.
thing you would expect from them. So, but it was good.
Let's go to some of your shooting.
Okay.
What is the craziest weather day that you have ever shot in?
There were two instances that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we get a lot of wind and rain in this country, so you know, we're kind of used to shooting it. And in fact, when it's a nice day, people forget how to shoot because it's so rare that it's nice here that really people's scores suffer on a nice day when they shouldn't. Um,
Wow.
but my I was when I was trying to get onto squad, I was being watched. They knew that I existed, and I was at Stoke Mandeville Invitational. So that was
Mm-hmm.
at the time. It was an international, but it was also the British disabled champs as well. So they kind of were running together. So even if you weren't on squad, you still got to shoot your qualifications with internationals, and you still get to shoot your head-to-heads with internationals. Um, so it was a really good experience, and that's the first time I met my Polish friend.
Oh, cool.
And we had it was pretty good weather. It's a week long thing like internationals normally are, and then we get to the finals, and I was really proud of myself. I got to a bronze final, and I
Mm.
just thought because I'm trying really hard to get on squad, and so I'm trying to do my best, and um, this I could see the weather was changing in the distance, and I just said to my coach, "That's going to be here when I'm shooting." So my side marks are all going to be different. I'm on the practice field going, we're not going to have time to sort of check this weather. This weather is going to hit as we're taking the field for the final, and I'm just like, okay, let's have a game plan. So literally
Mhm.
we were down to like hand signals. Basically he's like, when I go down, because I couldn't even use my scope because it was raining so hard I couldn't even see the target.
Wow.
You couldn't really you knew the target was down there, but you couldn't make it out clearly. You've got rain
Mhm.
in your face, and and it's blowing, and but I mean it was a deluge. It was raining so hard. So we just basically said, okay, I will give you hand signals if you need to aim off one way or the other. And I'll just keep making a different hand signal if you need to come back one way or the other. So that's how we did it, and I won. So and I was just like, and the woman I beat was a Ukrainian woman, and she was really angry that someone
Oh.
who wasn't on an international squad beat her. She was not happy. Her coach was a very diplomatic though. He
Mhm.
was very nice, and he came up and gave me a hug and told me well done and stuff. And I'm like, I went over to her, and as we like to do, we like exchange badges. She almost
Mhm.
didn't want to accept it from me because she was really angry. And I understand, how she probably must have felt, but I made sure that she took it because I just thought, you are the reason I won. You pushed me,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
we both were shooting in this horrible weather, and but I had the whole GB squad behind me, rooting me on because they were wanting me to be on squad too. But I'm
Mhm.
having to pretend that there's nobody behind me. People are calling my name, and I'm just trying to pretend that I'm just on my own because I didn't turn around to look at them. I didn't acknowledge them in any way because I knew how important this was,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I really have to just concentrate on what I'm doing because this weather is so bad. And the other time that we had really bad weather was again at Stoke Mandeville, but this was for this was a para quota shoot. for London. It was the last one. And we had to face a different direction than we normally shoot there. So normally we're on the grass. And this time, we were on to get the length of the field, because we were sort of long ways. Our equipment and us, we were on the running track, so you couldn't tie anything down. You couldn't stake anything down. We tried
Oh,
weighting things down with bottles of water or sandbags and things, and
mhm.
it was like dominoes. People's scopes and bows were just all getting blown down this huge line.
Wow.
And it was like people were like running around going, oh my God, my scope smashed. And, so it was,
Mhm.
and it was to the point where literally I was getting blown off my stool because the
Oh.
wind was so hard, and I was having to aim 2 targets off to
Mhm.
even just get them onto my target. It was horrible. and then and then again in between was just the regular international, and people were given a choice. Do you want to shoot it, or do you want to save yourself for the quota shoot? Well, I didn't get chosen to do the quota bit. So I thought, well, I'm not going to, I'm here. I might as well just do the regular international,
Mhm.
and just shoot against, lots of internationals here. I might as well get the practice in. So my coach and I just arranged, just the two of us. We're going to go down first thing in the morning, and I shot really well, and I was really pleased. And then, after my second match, I turned around and the whole squad is there. And I'm just like, you guys didn't have to come here. You could have had a rest day. And they're like, well, we wanted to come and support you, and
Oh.
that's
Oh, that's so cool.
that's that's
I mean, that's so wonderful.
that's team for you. That's team spirit right there.
Mhm.
Caring about somebody to say it might be my day off, but I'm going to come and support that person. And that made me feel really good. But, I was in my headspace like I normally do, pretending that it's just me. So I
Mhm.
didn't even see them coming up. I didn't hear them. And then all of a sudden I turned around when it was over, and I could sort of take a deep breath. And it's like, where did you guys come from? So, yeah. So, and that day was beautiful, of course.
Yeah.
But that's Britain for you. You can have every season in one day.
It's kinda like where I live too.
Yes.
We've had, 2 days ago, or it was absolutely beautiful weather, and, today it's like 45 degrees Fahrenheit, um, or
Yeah. Cold. Yeah.
and and after the beautiful weather on Saturday, before that, this would have felt kind of okay, but it was just too nice on
Hmm.
Saturday. What great archery books have you read?
Um, I like With Winning in Mind and
Mhm.
Understanding Winning Archery. And I've only seen a few excerpts from the Coach Kim archery book. If I could ever get my hands on one of them, I would love to read that book. I've seen a few snippets, which look really, really interesting, but I've never actually gotten to see a whole copy of it. So hopefully one day I'll be able to see it, because I think there'd be some really good information in that book.
With the book Winning in Mind, is there a particular quote or thought from it that resonates in you?
Um, I can't think of anything particular, just sort of the whole thing as a whole.
Mhm.
Um, and I will be perfectly honest, it's been a while since I've read it too. Um,
Oh, that's
but
fine.
I think, just being positive, I think, is the biggest thing. I
Mhm.
didn't used to be a positive person. And, between that and working with a psychologist, that changed a lot for me. And that was one of the books was recommended for me to read, about being more positive. So yeah, that really, really helped.
Our society does not really enhance positivity. There's so much negative
Yeah.
everywhere and on TV. Um, that books like these are so powerful to read, and to learn how to deal with a setback or a disappointment, which everything on the archery range can, mentally can
Mm.
be. I mean, you shoot and you don't get what you want. The results aren't what you want, and it's how to mentally recover from that. which is powerful.
Yeah, and one of the things that did stick with me from the Al Henderson Understanding Winning Archery was that when he said, someone had said to him, why are your archers playing frisbee or whatever it was? And he said, because they need it. They need to do this so that they can focus. So I'm okay with that. And I always remembered that, actually it's okay. If your mind is not there, walk away, have a break, do something else so that your mind can be there. And that's certainly one thing that always stuck with me. The fact that the coach is basically saying, I know my archers well enough to see they're not 100% here. Let them blow off some steam, and then they'll feel better and they'll come back and they'll shoot better. So I always gave myself permission, saying, if I'm having a tough practice, or I just can't focus for whatever reason, I'm just going to put my bow down and walk away, get a change of scenery, something, listen to some music, just take a break and then come back to it. And that is actually an okay thing to do.
That's powerful. Because a lot of people are like, go, 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 go till you drop, and then it's like, wait a minute, way before I mentally fell, what could have I done differently? Yeah. Which strategies do you have if your equipment breaks in a competition?
Well, when I was on squad, we're required to have 2 bows.
Oh,
okay. They didn't have to be 2 exact bows, but I'm that kind of person. I want mine to be 2 exact bows. I want them to be as closely set up to each other as possible.
That would make sense to me.
I mean, some people, it's no problem for them to do that, but for me, that was just easier for me. I want them to look the same. I want them to be set up the same. So for me, I might as well be shooting 1 bow. And that way I don't have a favorite. If they're identical, then you can't have a favorite.
Yep.
So and even if I only took 1 bow, if I was just doing like a local shoot or something and I just took 1 bow, I tend to have spares of, a spare button, a spare rest, Do
you name your bows?
I don't.
I know somebody that does.
A lot of people do, and I even make up nicknames for other people's bows. But my bows is just bow 1 and bow 2, kind of like Dr. Seuss's thing 1 and thing 2. They look exactly the same. Yeah. So, I mean, I had thought, oh, should I have a name? And I just thought, what, I'd probably forget the name anyway. So, they're just, they're my bows and I love them, but they don't have names. They don't even have nicknames. I'm sorry, bows, but no. And that's unlike me. That would be something like that I would do, would be to name my bows. But yeah, that's just one thing. Although they, I put little stickers on each bow so that I know because they are identical and everything on them is identical. So that if I'm in a rush, I know that small dots all go together and big dots all go together. So I don't make a mistake of putting the wrong limbs on the wrong bow or the wrong string or whatever. So I've just coded them that way.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I guess, that is kind of not necessarily naming it, but at least giving each bow an identity.
Well, it's like they're identical twins. You need to be able to understand which one is which.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, food. How does the food you eat on the day of a shoot impact your thinking and your shooting abilities?
I try to eat the same breakfast every single day. I know that's pretty boring, but
What do you eat for breakfast?
I eat fruit and fiber, Kellogg's Fruit and Fiber. I like cereal. That's my thing. And, it sets me up. It's good. It's got nuts. It's got dry fruit. I know if I eat it, it's not going to make me feel ill. And, if you change it up, say, if you're staying at a hotel and you're thinking, oh, look, there's, scrambled eggs and bacon. Well, I don't normally eat that for breakfast. So maybe if I was on holiday, but no, I'm just going to stick with my cereal. I might have, some yogurt or some toast to go with it just to have some extra. But it will be yogurt and it will be white toast, not whole wheat, because I know that white toast won't upset my stomach and, things like that. And then
what you eat during the day?
I can be really bad because sometimes I'm just, I don't tend to get hungry when I'm shooting. but I'm a diabetic, so I do need to be careful.
Hmm.
I'm more concerned with staying hydrated because that
Yeah.
affects me far more. I mean, I can drink loads and loads and loads during the day. And then just, food wise, it's like dry fruit and nuts and, stuff that has um, a slower burn in your body. It keeps your blood sugar nice and level. That's what you need to do as a diabetic anyway, is to keep your blood sugar nice and level. So it will just be grazing, you know.
So what do you keep? So all this you keep in your what I would call your food treasure chest, and at a tournament that kind of prevents one from getting a little hungry. Well, okay, one gets hungry, and then you smell the really good pizza. It's so you can munch on something that you brought with you.
I mean, normally at a British shoot, there tends to be like a burger van,
Hmm.
and the thing with British archers, bacon butty, which is just a bacon sandwich, is like the thing that people like look forward to when they're going to, they have to have one in the morning or they'll have one at lunchtime. And
Yep.
I can take or leave bacon. There are times I like it. There are other times where I'm just like, ugh, yuck, bacon. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't want to be eating something heavy or greasy. I mean, I lived and learned that one.
Hmm.
But it's not something I would normally have at home. I'd rather bring my own stuff with me. Um,
Yep.
because I just know that I'm not going to get an upset stomach or I'm not going to feel heavy or feel sick off it or anything. So I'd rather just, even if I do smell it and maybe I'm on a liking bacon phase, I still don't want to have it,
Yeah.
and I don't eat red meat. So if somebody had a burger, I wouldn't care. So I just kind of rather just not,
Yeah, and
you
you
know,
bring the foods with you too,
yeah,
so you're not like at that last moment, I really need something and I have no choice.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and yeah, I just prepare so that I can, and I'll put it in like a little bit of like Tupperware or something so I can, keep it dry if it's raining and not have to crinkle and open a bag while I'm on the line and bother somebody else.
That would just be wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, so I just try to stick to the foods I know, but I do kind of get in a mood, like especially if it's like a 2-day shoot, I kind of just don't care during the day, and that's bad. So
Hmm.
that's why if I just bring the things that I like that I can just pick at, then I'll just be
Yep.
constantly picking through the day, and that's enough for me. And then I'll have a nice dinner when I get home.
And that just kind of keeps your blood sugar level,
Yeah,
would keep my blood sugar level and hunger down a little bit.
yeah. And
And
and sometimes I'll have like a something sugary sweet just in case I feel like my blood sugar is dropping.
yep.
I can have like a gummy bear type thing,
Hmm.
something like that. Even though I tend to have dried fruit and I'd rather have that. And there, to be honest, there's, most archers will have things like that with them, and they'll walk down the line going, "Do you want one? Do you want one?" So, if I get offered one, I'm not going to say no.
Wow. Oh, I want to let our listeners know that I've just taken half a page of notes and I still have more to go. And I'll have them at theflyingarcher.com on our show notes. And you can follow Leigh on Twitter and Instagram at, can you pronounce it for me?
Aubergine Archer. Is that what?
And yep,
That's the same
that's
same for both.
that's her Twitter
And
and
Instagram.
Instagram handle.
Yeah.
And Facebook, it's Leigh
Walmsley.
Walmsley. uh, Now, a few times you have talked about that you don't let yourself get distracted by the people that are around you. What what tips or tricks do you use for your mind to help you be that focused?
Um, it's interesting. When I was on squad, we had a psychologist that we worked with, and I remember one time when we were going through some simulations before London, And I think people were, as we do, we were, a close squad. We knew each other pretty well. And, it was one day where, I was maybe the butt of the jokes. And I just kind of wasn't.
Oh,
Normally I'd be in
oh,
the
there's
mood.
British sense of humor can be
Oh yeah,
quite,
cutting. Yeah.
yeah.
And normally I didn't care, and I'd be right back at him with a one liner. But on this particular day, I was just like, do you know what? I've had enough. And I think I actually swore really loud because I was just that was the straw that broke my back. And
Yep.
I think the coaches were down at the target end collecting our arrows. And I just, swore loud enough that they could hear it because I was just like, I couldn't hold back anymore.
Mhm.
And then it was my turn to shoot, and I shot a nice 10. And my coach said, we should get her angry more often. And the psych was there, and she said, no, she wasn't angry by that point. She'd gotten rid of the anger, and she was calm. We need to keep her calm for her to shoot. She needs to chill out. She doesn't want to be nervous. She doesn't want to be angry. She doesn't want to have like high emotions. She wants to have really cool, low emotions. She just wants to be laid back. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's good. So we worked on that because,
Mhm.
one thing I realized when we were talking was I always seemed to shoot best when I was, kind of, I am very gregarious and I like to be in the midst and having fun with everybody. But I found that my best scores were when I was just kind of people watching or just looking at the clouds flying by, or, you know, I might happen to see like, some birds or some squirrels chasing each other or something, and just kind of focusing on that,
Mhm.
rather than getting too involved with any politics or any, craziness going on. And, when I shot a really great Phoebe when I was in the Czech Republic, and I remember describing how I felt because it was like it was a nice warm day, and I was people watching. I was watching their field party doing stuff. But I kind of almost had the feeling, the way I was like sitting in my chair, that I might as well have been on the beach somewhere in a nice beach chair, just watching the waves rolling. That's kind of how I felt. I was like in this really chilled out little bubble, just on my own, just watching the world go by. And so that's what the psychologist was saying, that that's the kind of, feeling, that's your happy place. That's the kind of things you need to be feeling when you're shooting, and you will shoot better when you're calm rather than when you're, because I could easily get giddy and silly, and I am that kind of person,
Mhm.
want to be goofing around and having fun, and I do that. At times I like, when I go to like a UK level shoot, I am known for my long rod Mexican wave. on, on the ladies line, I always get them. So while we're waiting, we're just doing a long rod Mexican wave, and we'll just go back and forth, back and forth. If somebody's had an equipment failure or something like that, and we're just trying to kill time, that's the sort of thing, But we're not shooting at that time, so that's all right to do that sort of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's keeping chill and staying in my bubble.
What were your early challenges in archery?
Well, obviously, with the rheumatoid arthritis, and I've always had problems with my feet and ankles, and it's something that I just thought that was my sort of little difficulty that I had in life, and that was just my own thing,
Mhm.
and it was like me on my own having to deal with that. It never really came to me to consider that disabled. I just thought, this is my little issue, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And so, but people then started noting, if it was a 2-day shoot, they're like, your scores have dropped by 100 points by day 2, and you can barely make it down to the target, because I'd walk down and get my own arrows.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh. And then somebody actually showed me a video of myself, and you could see my whole body posture, everything. You could see I was suffering, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to give in.
Yep.
Um, so I just struggled along. Um, and I probably wasn't even really aware until I saw that video.
Yeah.
And then some people actually who were on the GB para squad, came up and talked to me about it, and they're like, "We've been watching you. Why are you collecting your own arrows?" Well, because I didn't realize there was an option that I could stay on the shooting line and have somebody else collect them for me. I had no idea that was even a possibility. And I was just thinking, well, why would anyone do that for me? And they're just like, we've seen you. We see how much you're struggling. Come on, you've got a disability. I'm like, no, I don't. I just have rheumatoid arthritis. And they're like, hello, that is a disability. I'm just like, oh, all right, okay. So yes, it did take a while, and it, to even, go and be talent ID'd for the GB squad.
Mhm.
I had to be, somebody had to drag me kicking and screaming. I mean, they actually made the phone call and shoved the phone in my hand to talk to the person to arrange it, and they were like looming over me, you're going to be speaking to this person later. So, and
You
I just thought,
you have some good
I
friends.
do,
Yeah.
and I just, so it was accepting, that actually, yes, this is a disability. It isn't just your thing that you have to deal with,
Yep.
but because I just was unaware at the time. So, I was actually quite grateful for having my eyes open to that.
Mhm.
Because, not having to go to the target does improve my archery because, and this is a thing that, it's worse and worse and worse. There are some days now where I hit a wall, and to take even one step is really difficult. But it's the nature of the beast,
Yep.
and this, and I, my doctors have explained to me that, this is what's going to happen. They do their best to try to slow it down so it doesn't happen too fast, but it's going to happen. There's
Mhm.
nothing they can do to stop it from happening. It's going to happen. So it's just managing it. And, then, finally when I, accepted it and I stopped going down to the target, and then so I got shown another video of, how much I swayed when I was doing archery. And somebody was like, you really should be using a stool. You have enough points in your classification to be using a stool. Why aren't you using a stool? And I'm like, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to give in. So and then I got showed this video, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I tried it, and I'm like, wow, that's really improved things. I can shoot more now. I can shoot better now. So it's like each time I'm learning, that these things are actually helping me.
Mhm.
So to finally accept these things. So now I'm at that point where I've made that. I've accepted that, and that's the way it is. And it's more about trying to manage things to make it so that you can shoot to your best.
Yeah. Utilizing the tools that are
Yeah,
out there
absolutely.
that you're allowed to use.
Yeah.
Um, I guess you couldn't have someone sit in your spot and shoot for you.
And I wouldn't want somebody to do that either. Yeah, you
No.
can collect my arrows, but let me shoot them. I mean, actually right now I'd like somebody to shoot my bows for me because I can't actually shoot at the moment.
Mhm.
My shoulders are so bad at the moment. And this is, part of this whole thing. As I said, it's
I'll
getting
shoot them
worse.
for you if you
Oh,
want.
thank you. That would be really
Yeah.
nice. I appreciate that. My bows are lefties, so I hope that's okay
Uh,
for you.
no, I'm a righty. Oh, no. I'd have to that would be
Yeah,
that would be terrible.
yeah. So yeah, so that's one of the things. I mean, that's been really hard because I've been not been able to shoot since March 2015. It's just taken a really long time to sort of figure out what was going on. Um, and but now I'm sort of, now they know what's going on. It's basically, how are we going to approach this?
Yep.
So I might be having surgery later. My physio wants to just keep trying it her way. My orthopedic surgeons wants to do surgery, but then there are
Oh,
risks.
they always want to do
Yeah, of
surgery.
course. So it's just, I'm waiting to see. I mean, in my head, I was thinking, oh, I'll be shooting by June, and they just all
Mhm.
laughed at me. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll be shooting by September, but maybe that's not even going to be a reality either. But hopefully by next year, I'll be shooting. Hopefully this will be taken care of in one way or another. And when you were saying about compound, if it comes to the point where I can't really use my shoulder, then I will get a shoulder harness and I will shoot a compound.
Hmm.
If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes to keep shooting. Hopefully it
It,
doesn't, because I do love my recurves.
yeah, and yeah, I understand. Um, it's cool that there are different
Yeah,
options.
exactly. I don't have to not shoot. I might just
Yeah.
have to change it up. And, I don't dislike compounds. I have a preference for a recurve, but if shooting a compound means I can keep shooting, I will shoot a compound.
I'm sitting here looking at the wind, just like wondering when it's going to blow my building over. And I was thinking, what is the craziest thing that's happened when you were shooting?
I can't think of one. I was racking my brain to think of, something. Some people have some, great stories. I mean, my stories probably happen to most people, and I wouldn't call them necessarily crazy.
Hmm.
Some funny things have happened. I mean, in fact, when I was at the Paralympics, you've interviewed Leigh Ford.
Yep.
There was two consecutive shoots being run at the same time, and she was in the other one,
Yeah.
two Leighs, and they said Leigh Walmsley for her. So I happened to be shooting her scores for her, and it was a good laugh for us. And I'm like, wow, I was all the way over there. I'm pretty good. So that I wouldn't say that was crazy, but it is funny.
Yep.
Yes.
And and you're shooting for the British team. She's shooting for the
Yeah.
USA team.
Yeah. There's two Leighs, and obviously they just got it mixed up. And I'm like, wow, how did I do that from over there? I'm like, I bet you didn't even see. That's my ninja skills.
So what are you thinking about while you're on the range shooting?
Um, I tend to, and it just happens. I don't try to make it happen, but normally in the morning I'll get up, and this happens just about every morning. But if I'm doing a competition, I kind of try to hold on to it. And when I'm taking my shower, I tend to get like part of a song stuck in my head. And I'll even wonder, where did I hear that music? Was it in the supermarket? And I just was subconscious, you know,
Hmm.
and I'll just, not even a whole song, it's just part of the song. And so that tends to just go over and over and over and over in my head while I'm shooting. I don't mind because it helps me keep my rhythm. So, I just like, we'll be having this, one line of song in my head going over and over and over. And I just get my rhythm to go to that. And
Which
yeah,
is
so that's there's not a lot that goes on in there while I'm shooting.
um, do you have any mental tricks to offer other archers?
Um,
And keep focused?
well, I mean, they could get their earworm if they I mean, I know people who like will say like Mary had a little lamb sort of thing to keep their rhythm, so that
Hmm.
they're, and again, it's the same sort of thing. You're doing that kind of repetition thing so that you're doing the same thing each time. And like, I like to, as I said before, like look at clouds, look at birds, to almost do something that isn't archery related,
Mm.
and when I'm shooting, because I'm not really thinking, I'm trying to do rather than, and trying to feel rather than think. Because I
Yeah.
think thinking is the worst thing you can do when you're doing archery. And I think we're all guilty of probably thinking or overthinking when we're shooting. Um,
Yeah.
but in between, I think it's great to not think about that last shot that you did, or anything like that. It's like, ooh, look at that bird over there, or
Hmm.
oh, there's a balloon. Did you see that balloon up there? Some kid must have lost it, that sort of thing, or oh, there's a plastic bag just rolling around in the wind over there, something absolutely pointless,
Hmm.
so that you on purpose aren't sort of overthinking your archery.
Now you've been shooting for a little while now, except for the past year.
Yeah.
Um, how would you describe what it feels like to shoot an arrow? And this is to somebody who's never shot an arrow before.
Right. Well, I think that when you shoot an arrow and it goes right, your heart flutters, skips a beat, like when you're seeing like your crush or somebody that you're in love with.
Mm.
And when it doesn't go right, it's like you're maybe it's like unrequited love. Like maybe that guy you got a crush on is with your best friend or something. So it drives you a little bit crazy. You love it, but you hate it too.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Oh, wow. Leigh, the time has just flown by and you have been an incredible
Oh, well,
guest.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I would like to give you the last word. Could you leave us with a pearl of wisdom or inspiration?
Oh wow, that's putting me on the
No, that wasn't in the questions I
Yeah,
sent
no,
you.
it wasn't. I would just say that, do archery because you love it and because it makes you feel good. It's a great social sport, and if you love it, you're going to do good at it. And even if you don't do good at it, even if you have no aspirations with your archery, just go with the flow. Don't think too much. Don't get caught up too much in like what's the latest equipment. I mean, yes, it's always nice to have something new and pretty, but there's more to archery than having the shiniest bow. It's
Mhm.
more about just having fun and enjoying yourself. How's that?
Leigh, that was
Oh,
beautiful.
thanks.
And thank you. Thank you for being on the
Oh,
show.
thanks for having me. It's been really nice to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Been wonderful talking with
Oh,
you and
cheers.
hearing your stories, and I'm sure there's wonderful pearls of wisdom for lots of people to gain from this show.
Or
And
they'll laugh at me one way or the
I'm
other.
laughing. They'll run screaming.
Yeah.
Ah! That was British sense of humor for us Americans who are listening to this. Um, so all of the links, websites, and resources from this podcast will be posted on our website on our show notes at theflyingarcher.com.